Welcome back to Self-Love Ignited. Today on the podcast, I had the absolute honor of speaking with Nidhi-Amanda. She came on to share her beautiful story of self-love. Now, this story has so many layers, so many textures. It involves trauma in her early life. It involves going back to school when she was in her 50s, starting a new career. She also shares with us a recent loss that she's been through and how she has healed her relationship with herself and really tapped into her power. This conversation is honestly, it was healing for me to have it. It was inspiring for me. We talked about how we are one with nature, how learning to love ourselves is really just a remembering, not so much a learning. We talked about a beautiful, simple practice that you can do to tap into this, this inner love. And I think that you're going to get a lot from this episode. It's very tangible and it's going to leave you in a really beautiful place. So without further ado, jump on in. Here is Nidhi-Amanda. My name is Katie Allen, and this is Self-Love Ignited. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Self-Love Ignited. Today on the podcast, I have the pleasure and honor of interviewing Nidhi-Amanda. We are going to talk about her life story, her self-love story, and it's a biggie. It is a biggie. I've gotten a little preview and I can tell you that it's a good one. So Nidhi-Amanda, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody?
Hello, Katie, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to have a conversation with you. So I call myself a life and death doula, and I'm a certified therapeutic coach, a death doula, and a life coach. And I live in South Africa in a little village close to the ocean, and I work with clients all over the world. And if I think about the core of what I offer and what is my life story and what is my calling, it's to reconnect people with their inner light, to find that spark, that magnificence of the essence of who they are. And I put it in the sort of makeup of offering life support, because we all need support for different things in our lives. And as we go through our life and the challenges that unfold and the circumstances that happen to us, there are often times where we feel completely overwhelmed and discombobulated and confused as to how to find that spark within, that inner higher purpose and higher self and divinity. And so through gentle work of healing where you are right now, finding out where you are right now, and then gently weaving your story, we can start to remember and reconnect with those parts of ourselves that have been forgotten or severed or lost in trauma or anxiety or just the circumstances of life. And I believe in working with the circle of life, and the circle of life is birth, life, and death.
Yeah.
And we experience this so much in our lives, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so that is my calling as an elder, to really help people connect with the essence of who they are.
That's beautiful. I absolutely. Sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to say, and to learn or relearn how to love themselves.
Yeah. I think it's. I just want to say that I love your work. I love the core purpose of your work. Like your why underneath it, but also really just acknowledging life. Birth, life, and death. And I think so many cultures around the world, not all cultures, but many cultures, and a lot of people are really afraid of death, or we want to ignore it. We want to shy away from it. It's uncomfortable. But there can also be a lot of beauty in it, I think, right? It's part of the cycle. So Yeah, I love the work that you're doing. I think that that's really beautiful. So let's get into
Thank
you.
you.
Let's get into you and your story and sort of how you got here, because nobody does this work without a personal
Mm,
connection to it. So I would love to
mm.
hear you, and I know that your self-love story is incredible and layered and, is full of texture and different things. Bring us back to sort of like the beginning. What did what did life look like when you didn't love yourself or didn't accept yourself? Like bring us back to there and sort of walk us through what that transformation was for you.
Well, what's interesting is that in my 50s, I went back to study. So at the age of 52, I enrolled to do a degree, a bachelor degree in applied psychology. And during that process, I had a time to reflect on my life up to that point. And I divided my life into 3 chapters. And I'm in the 3rd chapter. With my age, there's the 3rd act of life, as Jane Fonda calls it,
Mm.
but also in my journey towards loving myself. So the first 25 years of my life were filled with a lot of trauma, pain, disconnection, and a lack of sense of belonging. Um, and through my parents' difficult marriage and the fact that we lived in a home where there wasn't a lot of love, and I had to rely on my own resources and spiritual connection from a very, very young age. Um, I made some choices as a teenager and as a young woman that weren't for my greater good, but I did the best that I could with what I knew. And I ended up in an abusive marriage with a really violent, aggressive man. And I had a baby. And I was 20 years old when I had this little girl. And she was born into a place of terrible discontent and disharmony. And it was those moments of so many dark nights of the soul, those moments where I didn't know what to do. I had to call on my inner guidance to show me the way. And when I left my marriage, I was 24 years old. I mean, it's so young. When I think back now, it's just, and I had this little girl, she was 3 years old. And I left my marriage and I made a decision that when I walked out of that never, ever again would I allow anybody to take my power and my light away. And it was a really tough decision. And but it was a calling because I had to do the best that I could to look after my daughter and bring her up and give her as much as I could from a very empty well. But what's been interesting for me recently is that I've realized that throughout those dark times of the beginning of my life, I was always connected to God. I was always connected to spirit. I always had a higher purpose. And there was so much love and support that I was able to access that gave me the strength to make the changes that I needed to change in my life. And and I often think of the movie Gone with the Wind, where she stands and she says, as God is my witness. And it's that moment of like, no matter what happens, I'm going to turn my life around and I'm going to heal. Yeah. And I'm going to bring back love and acceptance for myself. And the message is often, and it's so important to know this, that we often take on these voices of not feeling good enough or feeling dismissed, rejected, abandoned because of other people's story and their wounding. And when we can start to separate that voice from our voice, from our own inner guidance and our inner light, that's when we can start to really heal and make choices from a place that empower us.
Yeah.
And so it's from that age, And I'll just say, like, on the 10th of May 1985, I got divorced, and I call that my power day. And every year I celebrate that day as a day that I took my power back. That, with every bit of courage and very little resources, and very little support, I made a difference. Made a different decision. I turned my life into another path. And from then until now, my journey has been that of wholeness, of healing, of transformation. And it's not always easy, and there are many challenges. And I've gone through many moments of dark night of the soul where I've had to reconnect with that light, and that sometimes gets dimmed. But it was just, I couldn't not make the decision to change my life and to start to take back my power and to heal the broken parts of myself. And that has brought me to the fact that when I was 52, once I'd finished growing my daughter up, and she had made her choices and was on her path, I could then take care of myself and get the education that I wanted to get when I was very young, but couldn't. So going back to school and studying a degree was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And it was where I really made a commitment to put myself first, to say, okay, I'm going to do this because it's going to help me to help others. And that's what I did. And it took me 3.5 years. I did my degree. I did some extra diplomas, and I started a new career and a new life from that time. That has brought me into this path that I'm on now.
Wow. That's like, your story is just incredible to listen to, coming from, like you said, very early in life, there wasn't much love, there wasn't much support. You found yourself very, very young in an abusive marriage with this little girl who you were responsible for. Somehow you found the strength, somehow you found the courage. You did it. And I love that you have a power day and that you still celebrate it to this day, because so many people, and I think women especially, we tend to not celebrate ourselves very much, right? We just sort of brush off our wins and our things. We just, oh, it's no big deal. It is a big deal.
Such a big deal.
It's such a big deal. And the fact that you recognize that and still recognize that is that's incredible. That's amazing. Yeah. And then in your 50s, it's like the next level of power, right? Like, you empowered yourself by making a different choice in your 20s, but then in your 50s, it was like, okay, how can I level up once again? And you did it by going back to school, and now you change people's lives with what you learned. Like, and yeah, you're awesome. I don't know. It's amazing. It's wonderful to listen to your story.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious then, what was happening when you were in your 50s and you decided to go back to school, this education that you had always wanted and you were not able to get when you were younger for, the circumstances you were in? What was going on the inside? Were you having self-doubt? Were you thinking that you were too old or not smart enough or not capable? Like, what was that, and how did you get through that?
So first of all, going to study, it's a romantic notion. And I was really driven, like, this is what I'm going to do. It's exhausting. I had to really work on my brain. It was brain gym. I had to really, get into a different way of thinking, etc. I'd never written an academic essay ever before. And I remember my first essay, I was guided to send it to my friend who's a remedial teacher, and she's amazing. And I sent it to her, and she wrote back, and she so, with so much grace and care and gentleness, guided me that what I'd written was not how you write academic essay. And I'm so grateful for that, But it was tough, and financially also, just I put every single penny that I had into this education. I didn't work for 3.5 years. I changed my life. I was a bookkeeper before, and I changed my life to become a therapeutic counselor. And I mean, it was such a turnaround. And there were so many moments of doubt, but I was determined. I'd made this commitment, and I think I was so driven, and it was an answer to a prayer that I'd had my whole life, to really go to school, to educate myself. It felt like I needed, and it was interesting because it was almost like I needed that accreditation to bolster my self-worth. I didn't feel that what I had to say before, didn't feel heard, because I didn't have, and I've learned a lot about academia, and it has a particular trajectory that I now can accept that I will never fit into.
Yeah.
And learning to do this thing. And what was so interesting with psychology is that there was we were at a school that had all ages. So there'd be young people that came and did the psychology, and they were really good at writing an academic essay. They were really good at processing the theory.
Yeah.
But whether they were going to be good counselors or not was it wasn't always clear that. And here there was a certain number of us as sort of mature students who had this life experience, who didn't know how to write that academic essay, but we had this innate a wisdom. And I think that is what kept me going, is my wisdom.
Yeah.
Often the lecturers would stand up, and I'd had more life experience and I was older than they were. And I could feel how disembodied they were, because they were coming from such an academic thought process. So I think what I learned so much through the process of changing my career and the study was to learn to trust my voice, to trust what I had to say, to believe in the fact that I knew what I was doing, and that it didn't matter if I didn't get A+ for my academic writing, but I got A+ for the fact that I could connect with people, and they felt safe with me, and that I could hold space for no matter what your story is, because of my life experience.
Yeah.
And I think that has become my superpower, my ability to walk with my clients exactly where they're at, to meet them where they are. And that is a muscle that I have worked on with myself, of accepting myself exactly as I am in this moment.
Yeah.
And
I want to ask you about, accepting yourself, and it's like a muscle and you've worked it. And I think that's so key, because so many people just want the magic, they want to flick, it's like a light switch, or they think there's a magic pill, and it's like, no, it's a muscle, and you have to flex it. And at the beginning it's weak and it might hurt and you don't know what you're doing, and over time it gets stronger and stronger. What sort of tangible things have you done, or do you currently do to work on that, to accept yourself more, to find more love for yourself? Is it like journaling or meditation or yoga, like whatever, what do those things look like for you?
Okay, so all of the above.
Yeah.
So what I use a lot in my clients, first of all, yes, we have to do the work. And I think, the sort of the catchphrase at the moment in our world is go in. And it was so loud during the pandemic of, it's time to go inside. So what does that mean? How do we hold ourselves when we're having a tough time? How do we take care of our inner life, our inner world, so that so we know where to go when we go in? And how can we support ourselves to know that this too shall pass? Because these are things that sometimes it becomes so overwhelming. And I use the word discombobulated, because that is exactly what happens. It just comes from all directions, and there's so many things. And so, there are techniques of having a daily practice of taking care of the inner world. Of, yes, meditation is a tool that I've been doing for, I don't know, maybe 50 years. I think I started meditating when I was a young teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And so grateful that I have that as a tool. And what is the, learning what does that mean, and that each of us have our own way of meditating and own way of showing up for our lives. And I think that the work is the repetitive patterns,
Mm-hmm.
like we breathe, because we breathe in and we breathe out, and our heart beats at a particular rhythm. And all of those are the natural rhythms of life. Nature has a rhythm. The sun rises and the sun sets. And when we work with the rhythm of life, with however it brings us into balance. So, you find your tools. Some people need to do a lot of exercise. Some people need to go for a walk or go cycling or spend time with their children or their animals, or, just whatever it is, to practice being as present as you can with each moment. And that has been my biggest gift. And I just want to say, so just a year ago, I lost the love of my life. He died. And for all the things that I'd been through in my life, I'd never intentionally, with this much focus, made a decision that from the moment I got the call that he died, I made a commitment, another as God is my witness moment of, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to intentionally take care of myself during this process. And so this year has been a year of me dealing with grief on a very, very deep level. I love him with every fiber of my being, and it's been such a huge loss. But I have practiced every day, even in those moments of unbelievable terror, of grief that it comes and I couldn't breathe and I didn't know what to do. I came back to the present moment and I said, okay, what do I need to do right now? And that is my magic medicine. Because when we can meet ourselves exactly where we are right now, what do I need? I need to breathe. I need to drink water. I need to say a prayer. I need to write in my journal. I need to hug my children, or whatever it is. When we can do that and stay as present as we possibly can, then we start to reconnect with that inner light.
Yeah.
And that light shines the way for us to know what the next step forward is.
That is beautiful wisdom. I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thanks, Buddha. Thank you.
That's very recent. And I know that's you didn't have to share that. So thank you for sharing so vulnerably with us. I think everybody has grieved someone or something.
Yeah.
I think your grief is a little deeper than most, but we know what loss is. Everybody knows what loss is. And I think human nature is to isolate in loss, right? We want to close ourselves off. And I want to honor you for opening up, because that's where the healing lies, right? Both your own healing and your ability to help others heal as well through it. Yeah.
Because all we do have is each moment, and each moment is precious. And what I've learned more than ever before, and it relates to my story, is that we can choose whether to celebrate life or not. It's a choice. It really is a choice. And it doesn't make it not difficult. And it doesn't take away the fact that we have to deal with life's challenges, whatever they are.
Yeah.
And, people have always gone through tough times. And at the moment, I think we're going through tough times in the world, But if we can just connect with ourselves and stay, even if it's just to put your hand on your heart and feel the comfort of that love, that is self-love. And that can help you through the most difficult moments. And it doesn't have to be complicated.
That's it.
It can be simple.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be complicated. There's this notion, I think, often that it has to be complicated, and there's all these moving pieces, and actually it's as simple as pausing and taking a breath and putting a hand on your heart and
Yeah.
being with yourself, and and maybe asking yourself what you need, and like you said, drinking some water, going for a walk, right? It's the simple things. It's the simple things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this journey that you are on, and we are all on, but this journey that you are on, that you're telling us about, does this feel like a journey of self-love for you? Is it acceptance? Is it discovery? Like what how would you describe it?
Um, yeah, for me, it's being called home. It's that thing of I'm 62 this year,
Yeah.
and I'm on a journey as a wise woman of how I'm going to walk the rest of my life. And the choice of my vision is to have a beautiful life. And that it's that simple. So, it is a journey, but it's a coming home, because home, home is where the heart is, and our heart is our connection to our divinity. It's the place that we can go to where we can find solace and connection and feel divine love. And it's in that place that's, for me, is home. So the journey, or the process, is coming home to the self. And the more we come home to who we are and come into that place of acceptance of who we are and practice loving who we are, that's where we start to feel reconnected to universal love. And our whole life, from the sort of on a spiritual level, when we're born, there's a disconnect. We become, the process of duality happens, where we are separate and we grow through our life. But the journey that we go through life is coming home, coming back to the self. And that is the circle of life. And I just wanted to bring something in here that I'm working with so much, and that is pause, the process of pausing. That when it's that pause, that moment where you just stop for one moment and just allow yourself to connect with yourself and feel into that love, however that happens. That the art of pausing is such a beautiful tool that can help one connect with what's going on right now. And they use pausing when you're dealing with serious anxiety or triggers or trauma. Just if you can just for just a moment, just stop, take a deep breath. That pause moment can realign you and bring you back to where you need to be.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful gift. So if I had to say that coming home to self is, for me, is the art of pause, because when I pause, I can connect with myself, and then I know where I'm going. And
yeah.
And that is all part of self-love,
Absolutely.
love.
It is. It's interesting when you said that pause. As soon as you said that, my whole body went, I felt a bit of a release, and I took a deep breath, and I just, when you tune in, when you allow yourself to be present and notice, there is magic in the pause. There is absolute beauty in there. If there's someone listening though, or if a client comes to you who's afraid of the pause, they don't know what's in the pause, they don't know what to expect in the pause. For many people, they've never paused, or they haven't paused in years, and it's sort of the unknown. Is there a bit of advice or wisdom that you would give somebody who's maybe feeling a little scared?
I think that the breath. I just want to say the breath. First of all, we breathe. I mean, breath is life. So from the minute we're born, we take our first breath, and then when we die, we take our last breath. Yeah. So breath is the tangible thing that we can connect with. So when we breathe, because generally we breathe as people on a very shallow level, we breathe just here. If we take a deep breath into our belly and we just fill our whole body with oxygen, just that breath, the in breath and the out breath, creates a shift. It creates a calm. And so even if you don't want to, the pause might feel huge, just a breath can shift you from one state of being to another.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away any of the challenges that you have to deal with, but it certainly slows you down enough that you actually in the breath process, you're actually going through a moment of pausing. And if you can focus on your breath, so you just intentionally do the breathing in and out, there's a shift.
Yeah.
And if that is all you have to hold on to, then that is enough, because from that moment after the breath, you can make a different decision.
That's, yeah, that's beautiful. Is this something that you innately knew when you were young? Like when when you were in your 20s and you were going through your divorce and all of that really scary time, did you innately know to pause and breathe? Were these things that you were doing then, do you think? Or has this come with experience and wisdom?
I think I've been able to articulate it differently as I've grown up and gone through my processes.
Yeah.
But even in the darkest times of my life, I always knew that I was okay, that it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that was just an inner knowing that, I always felt like I had a guardian angel taking care of me. And I never questioned that. And I didn't always know how to articulate it. And there were times where I was desperate, and I didn't know which way to turn. But I somehow knew that I was going to get through, that I was going to be okay, that it was going to, that it wasn't, yeah. And, that's, again, I think that's just me and my gift that I have carried my whole life, and that has helped me through.
Yeah.
And there's a saying, this too shall pass.
Yes.
And sometimes when you're going through the tough times and it's not something you want to hear, it's like you don't want to hear slow down, because that feels like a critical comment.
Yes.
Or this too shall pass feels like someone doesn't understand. But those are little moments, those are little pauses that can just help you come back into the present moment. And really, the more I've understood this, the more my life has, things still happen, but I deal with it differently.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
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 And I think that that's really key, right? Things still happen. It's still real life. It's still messy. There's still really hard days. It's not changing what happens. It's changing how you respond to what happens.
Absolutely.
That's the shift.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 And also to respond, to really intentionally check in with yourself and make a decision from your own inner knowing and your own inner strength. And with my work in my sessions, I help my clients, I call it scaffolding, because we need to put scaffolding in place to hold us strong and stable and grounded.
Yes.
And when our scaffolding is shaky, then we don't know which way to turn. So it's this inner resilience that we keep building and relying on and growing and adding different joins to that scaffolding to hold us through what life happens. And there's a lot going on. And, I think there's always been a lot going on, but with technology, we are aware of it more. It's in our face.
Yeah.
And, I think of people who are bringing up children now. I mean, I don't know how I would answer the many questions that children must have with what's going on in the world. Yeah. And it's only through just one step at a time, knowing, and staying present and trusting your breath. Because that means you trust your life and you trust yourself. Then you can manage the next steps, but you can't manage the next steps and the steps thereafter until you actually deal with this step right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My mom, she passed away many years ago, but she used to always say, and she believed this with every ounce of her being, was that we are never given more than we can handle.
Yeah.
And I remember as a young child going through, whatever things were big to me when I was, 11 or 12 years old. And I remember her sitting me down and just looking at me and just saying, Katie, we are never given more than we can handle. And even when it feels like you can't handle it, you just have to trust that you can and know that you can. And you know what? That I'm in my 30s now, and that has stuck with me, and I'm sure it will be with me for the rest of my life, because it
Mm.
is just that. It is trust that we can have it. And like what you said, sometimes it's just a breath, and that's it, right? And that's how we tap into trust that the next breath is coming, trust that we know how to
Yeah.
take the next breath, trust that
Yeah.
the pause in the breath is a safe place. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to say one more thing is that trust that nature knows.
Mm.
And we know that every morning the sun rises. And so every day is a new day and a new opportunity. And that is a given. And that can hold us feeling safe. Nature is the master for me, the brilliance and the divinity of life.
Yeah.
And just, watching the seasons and seeing where I am now, spring's coming. And suddenly every day there's more leaves, new leaves on the tree. And that's, where do they come from? And it's just that miraculousness
Yeah.
of the fact that these cycles happen and they happen. And we can work with that rhythm and with that cycle and breathe with it.
Yeah.
And that's trust.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And
And it's true.
I would even add on top of that that we are part of the cycle, right? We are in the cycle.
Yeah.
We are made of
We are
water. We are made of
yeah.
earth. We are
Yeah.
made of the same elements. And
Absolutely.
we're not separate. We are not separate. We are not isolated. And I think the more that we do exactly what you've been talking about, leaning in, trusting, breathing, it reconnects us to that, to the truth
Mm.
of who we are and what we are, and we are all one and we are all connected. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
too, you said before that you always knew that it would be okay. You always knew
Mm.
that you would get through whatever you were going through. You always knew. Was that like, was your connection to nature part of that? Was it like looking around and just being like, I'm part of this and it's always going, and so I will keep going? Was that where that came from? Or
It was, and I had this, even when I was a little girl and I was at nursery school, I used to garden. I love gardening. I love plants. I love the soil.
yeah.
And there's major scientific research now on grounding,
Yes.
on connecting with the earth, and that if we just take off our shoes and step outside and stand on the earth, the electromagnetic energy from the earth heals our body, our mind, our spirit. It heals, it has health benefits for so many things, that for people who've got high blood pressure, who've got heart problems, anxiety, when we connect with the earth, when we get that energy of the earth. So yes, I mean, I've always known that. And it wasn't that I was brought up in an environment that created that, because I was sometimes at boarding school and I did, but I always connected with nature. I've always liked to walk bare feet on the grass. And that's an inner knowing of the connection
Yeah.
to everything. And more and more I'm starting to see that, and more research is coming out, and more this conversation is happening of that we are part of, earth, my body. We are this incredible energy, and yes, we have those elements within us, and they're part of our life. And when we can work with them and bring the awareness and the wisdom that nature is giving us in every single moment of every day. And I just want to say that pause moment gives you an opportunity to connect with where you are right now, to take a notice, to look, to see. And when we look, we see so many miracles and gifts that are available all the time.
Yeah.
And so it is that. It's like, and you know, they speak about the human nature,
Yeah.
our nature. That's nature.
That is nature.
We are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this conversation. I think it's one that some people are aware of, maybe hesitant about, maybe they've dipped their toe in the water. But I think really grasping this concept that we are all one, that we are nature. And you know what? I don't believe there's any mistakes in nature. I think that, you look at, like you said, the leaves coming out on the trees in the spring, or a flower blooming, or, a bee collecting pollen from a flower. Like all those little things, they're just utter perfection. And I think that each one of us as a human being is too. And this journey to self-love is less a learning how to love ourselves and more a uncovering what we already know.
So yeah, remembering. It's a
Remembering.
remembering,
Yeah.
remembering.
Yeah.
And you know that our ancestors, the people, those who came before us, they knew so much of living in harmony with the earth and with the rhythms and cycles of life.
Yeah.
And the cosmos, with everything that is available. So I just want to say, so I've been following these photographs from this James Webb telescope that were released in July. And it really has it's blown my mind. Every photograph blows my mind because of the vastness of the universe. And it's really helped me to find perspective. And I just today, I just every day I see these photographs and I just get so inspired and so like in awe, in absolute awe of this universe, of this incredible universe that we live in and that we are part of. And it's miraculous and it's incomprehensible. It's almost hard to put into words. But that expansiveness of all that we are part of, can really help us to have perspective.
Yes.
And to choose how we want to be in each moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. This conversation is incredible, but I'm conscious of our time, my dear. Okay. I am conscious of our time. So, and I also just want to say too, those photographs which you sent me a couple of weeks ago are amazing. You did send them to me, and they are amazing. So if anybody's listening, go and check them out. Just jump on Google. What is it? It's the James Webb Telescope. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. So there was the Hubble, and then so they've been releasing now these photographs.
Yeah.
And I think the timing of it was perfect for us as human beings. We can choose what we want to focus on.
We sure
and
can.
Our following now, they've got Facebook groups, and they're just everyday people who are amateur photographers who've got these fancy cameras are taking photographs. I got one this morning of Saturn. It's like, it's so mind-blowing and with technology, the photographs. So it's definitely a beautiful expanded perspective that people used to look up at the sky. Now we're getting pictures and images of things that we cannot see.
Right.
And that is just miraculous and incredible.
It is miraculous. It is. Yeah. It is. If there is somebody listening who is struggling with their relationship with self, maybe they are in an abusive relationship, or they want to go back to school and they're really afraid and they don't know if they can, if they're in that place, what sort of last bits of wisdom or advice do you have to share with them?
So no matter where you are in your life, and no matter how old you are, what you're going through, that moment of just taking a deep breath, checking in, and feeling into your body, like where are you feeling the feeling? So as I'm talking about this now, I can feel my heart, and I know that, as you say that people are going through something, I can feel it in my heart. I can feel that there's fear, there's uncertainty,
Mhm.
there's like, what the hell is going on? Those moments. So the best that you can do is to take a beautiful deep breath, close your eyes and bring your hands onto your heart and just say, like, what do I need right now?
Mm.
And then listen,
Yeah,
listen, and let your body tell you.
that's perfect.
And you just take it one step at a time.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
perfect. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Um, if listeners want to get in touch with you, if they want to find out more about working with you, what that may look like, what is the best place for them to reach you?
Um, so my website's at the moment I'm changing it,
Okay.
but my website does have my contact details.
Okay.
I'm also on Facebook. I have a group called the Circle of Life on my own profile, and I'm on Instagram under my name, Nidhi-Amanda.
Okay.
So as far as I know, there will be my contact details under the show notes.
Yes.
And, please just reach out. And if I can be of support, it would be my honor.
Okay. Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
it's always my hope with this podcast that um, the right people will be connected, and I can tell you
Mm.
that it has happened more times than I can count. This podcast has been going for over 2 years now, and it has happened more times than I can count.
Mhm.
So yeah, so if there's somebody listening or watching this who is curious, who is needing support, reach out. I will make sure that there's links in the show notes, so it's easy to click
Thank you.
through.
Mm.
But don't hesitate. This journey of life, sometimes we can feel really alone, but you're not, right? The
Yeah.
support is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And through technology, made the world very small
Yeah.
in that we can connect with each other in different time zones, different spaces, and be connected and get, the support and the love that we need. And
Absolutely.
that's so important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to leave it there today. I really just want to say thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story with us, all the different beautiful layers and textures of your story. You know, it is truly inspirational to me to sit here and be able to witness you and listen to you and learn from you. And I know that it will be for listeners as well. So thank you.
And thank you for this opportunity. It's such a blessing. And to connect with you and the beautiful work that you're doing and your message of love for the world. And I just, it's like you in your 30s and I'm in my 60s, and it's just different generations, and yet we on the same path. And I just really appreciate and honor you for the work that you're doing and the message that you're sending. It's such important work. And thank you, and bless your heart.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right.